Leader of the Opposition, the future Prime Minister, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Matt, for what you just said. And I'm sorry if our support for a particular football team causes any controversy. But you know what? You have to stick to your beliefs. And I want you all to do everything you can to help get Matt elected to Parliament, because winning Warwick and Leamington, winning here, gives us the chance of forming a Labour government that will do things very, very differently in this country. I've just come from Worcester, where we're talking to student nurses in our NHS, the last cohort of student nurses to get a student nurse bursary. They do it because they want to be nurses, because they want to work within our National Health Service, because it's their calling, it's their vocation. And what they all told me was, if they're starting out again, they wouldn't be able to do it because they couldn't afford it. What kind of country is it that stops people becoming nurses by charging them so much? That is Tory Britain. And so our absolute core belief is about the National Health Service. It's the most civilised thing about our country. It was founded by Labour in 1948 because we believe that everybody, irrespective of their place or state of birth, deserves free access to health care. And it's Labour that will defend the National Health Service. We'll defend the National Health Service and ensure it's properly funded. And John Ashworth has announced on our behalf that the first thing he will do is halt the sustainability and transformation plans, look at the whole thing again to make sure there is proper access to any departments all across the country. But healthcare is also about other things. The crisis in our A&E departments, and it's serious, is partly because of the underfunding of social care. There are 1 million people waiting for social care, not available because of the cuts made by the coalition government and then the Tory government. And there are many who are going through a mental health crisis who are not getting the support that they need. A quarter of us in our lifetime will face a mental health crisis. We need to have a service there that's able to help and support us. We also need to have a society and a community that doesn't stigmatise people going through a mental health crisis, but recognises the need to support them. And so I think you will agree that even in opposition we've shown we're very serious about this by my appointing Barbara Keeley to be in the Shadow Cabinet to represent the needs of social care and mental health in our society. It's that serious, we've got to deal with it. But health is not just about hospitals and mental health and social care. It is also about how we bring up our children and what kind of support and care they get. So this morning, John Ashworth announced that we would stop the intensive advertising of unhealthy fast foods on television aimed at our children, not because we're killjoys, because the very opposite. We want our children to be born in the best circumstances and grow up as healthy as possible. Because every child that is undernourished or obese or both actually becomes quite often the heart patient of the future, the cancer patient of the future, the diabetic of the future. It's about how we treat everybody in our community. So I'm very proud of our pledge that a Labour government will ensure that every child in every primary school gets a free meal every day, eaten together. Eaten together because Children grow up together. And let's look at education as the greatest opportunity for all of our children. But under this Tory government, so many schools around the country, head teachers in a terrible state of stress and distress because they've got to decide which teacher to sack, which teaching assistant to sack, which exam not to enter children for, which subject to write out of the curriculum. Yep. Is it right that in 21st century Britain we're asking parents to take part in collections to pay teachers' salaries? It cannot be right. We've got to properly fund our schools so that all of our children, irrespective of the postcode where they were born, get the education they need and we demand to give them. And so I say to teachers, I say to doctors, I say to nurses, I say to those that work so hard in so many of our public services, you've been subject now to 7 years of pay freezes. In reality, you've taken a pay cut year in, year out. And a nurse was telling me this morning, she said, I love my job, I love the health service, I love what I do. But why is it society thinks so little of me that every year I get a pay cut? Come on. There's greater levels of inequality in modern Britain than have been almost ever in our history. It's getting worse and worse because wages are too low, because investment is too low, because our public services are underfunded, and because we have a taxation system that favours the super rich, the wealthy and the big corporations. And so the proposals we've already announced are all fully funded and will be fully funded. And our manifesto will come out very soon and you'll see all the details of that we're proposing to do. But fundamentally this election is about the kind of world and kind of society we want to live in. Do we want to go into another 5 years of a continuous cycle of cuts in public expenditure, of low investment in our industries, of an inadequate infrastructure, and always seeking to blame somebody else? Or do we want to have a fairer system? A system where the very rich pay the taxes they should, where the tax havens are closed down, and where there is proper investment, yes, in the infrastructure, but also in advanced technology, manufacturing industries and sustainable development. Sustainable industries in a sustainable world. And so our whole message in this election is about the kind of world that you want to live in. I've talked about health, I've talked about education. There's another area of enormous importance in public policy that we've got to look at, and that's housing. There are, every night, thousands of people sleeping rough on the streets of towns and cities in this country. Is anyone really comfortable with that? However well off you are, and you're going into your flat, nice flat, I hope people have got a decent flat to live in, you don't really want to be walking past those that have got nowhere to go that night and having to sleep rough or beg for the money for a night shelter. So somebody just asked me, a journalist just asked me an hour ago, what would be one of your first priorities when you get into Downing Street? I said, what it would be is to start in train a programme straight away to build the housing we need in this country, to end homelessness in this country, and point out to everyone in society bad housing affects us all. Obviously for the homeless and those rough sleeping, it's a terrible situation to be in. We need the hostels and the move-on accommodation. The councils who can't cope because they haven't been able to build enough, they have a crisis on their hands. For those that can't leave home because they can't afford the deposit to rent a private rented place, or for those that want to buy and can't save any money because they're paying so much in the private rented sector. We need a serious national initiative to deal with the housing crisis by building for those that need homes rather than building for speculative investment to keep them empty to make more money out of them in the future. So those are the priorities that Labour will put in this election. We'll put those priorities because it's in our core belief of the kind of world that we all want to live in. Don't pass by on the other side for somebody that's having a hard time. Go over and help them. And surely the function of public service, the function of government, is to help people in the most distressful and worst times of their lives. But it's also about running an economy that works, an economy that works for all in all parts of the country. Why is it there's such a massive imbalance of investment in London and the South East compared to the North East, the North West and the Midlands? How is it that we've tolerated all of this for so long? How is it the quality of the trains you're on gets worse and worse the further north you go from London and the South East? And I say that as somebody who represents a London constituency. So, our brilliant Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, John McDonnell, has put forward his proposals for a National Investment Bank. That National Investment Bank will be for the whole country, of course, but it will also be regionally based. So it will invest in the infrastructure we need. It will invest in the transport systems that we need, but it will also invest in the high technology, engineering and industrial jobs that we need for the future. So the brilliance of all the technology advances, the brilliance that's there in the computer technology of the age, shouldn't be something that we all fear, it should be something that we all benefit from. And our manifesto will set out a lot of what we as a Labour Party and a Labour government want to achieve. I say this to you, we've got 1 month today until the general election, and many of the media have written people off in the past. Indeed, I started out at 200 to 1 outsider to be leader of the Labour Party. And we have an enormous party membership. If you're a member of the Labour Party, thank you. If you're thinking about joining the Labour Party, please do. If you haven't thought about it, please think about it and come on board. And if you haven't even started thinking about it, start thinking about it, then you can think about joining, then we can welcome you in. If you get my drift. Because we've got 1 month to get a message out there that this isn't a presidential election, this is a parliamentary election. This is an election about our political future. The kind of relationships we have with the rest of the world, the trading relationship we have with Europe, which I want to be a tariff-free trade access, the kind of communities and societies that we want. Our message is quite simply this. Elect a Labour government on June the 8th, and you will have a government that is determined to deal with injustice and inequality, that is determined to create a society that works for all, so that every boy and girl can achieve what they're determined to achieve because we give them the tools with which to do it. And that older people will be protected by the triple lock on their pensions. The inequality and injustice that the WASPy women have been treated will be dealt with and will be addressed. And that we want a society that doesn't just provide pensions and security for older people. That, of course, is crucial. But it's also their role in society and their respect, the sense of isolation that so many older people face. You can't legislate for everything, but you can give messages out of communities coming together, coherence coming together. Quite simply, put it this way, we're a party for the many, not the few. We're there to change our society. We're there to create a better country and a better Britain. If this government is re-elected, what's the next 5 years going to look like? More tax cuts at the top end, more cuts at the other end. Lower levels of earnings, more than 6 million people already earn less than the living wage. 1 million working on 0 hours contracts, waking up every morning, looking at the mobile phone. Text message, have I got to work today or haven't I? Staring at that phone all day thinking, am I going to get 2 hours work? Am I going to get any or am I going to get none? What kind of world is it where we put people through that kind of stress day in, day out. Governments can legislate to create an environment where we treat everybody with respect, where people do have rights at work, do have rights in their society. And that's why I'm very proud to lead this party. I'm very proud of the policies we're putting forward in this election. And I'm very proud of the opportunity we've now got to get a message out there. So I appeal to all of you, do everything you can to get my friend here elected, a fellow Arsenal supporter. It's very important, this matter, despite what's being held. Oh, it's gone. Well done. No, I'm glad you're there. It's fine. It's okay. There's a little local problem here. Make sure that we win Warwick and Leamington, because by winning Warwick and Leamington, that's a message to the whole country. We are strong, we are healthy, we're in great heart, we're going to go out there with a message. Simply put it this way, for the many, not the few. Thank you very much.